All right, everybody, what's up? It is Thursday, the 30th of January. All right, there's a lot of false, quote unquote, wisdom given out when it comes to trading. I've spoken a lot about this in the past. I've spoken about the old cliche. A lot of this stuff is all cliche. Cut your losses short, let your profits run, as if you know that if you let your profit run, it's going to continue. And as if you know if you cut your loss short, that would have continued. So many of us have been in a situation where we cut our losses short, and then what happens? It turns around, and had we held on to it, it would have been a profit, and vice versa. All right, we're in a profitable position, we leave it, and then what happens? It ends up being a loss. All right, so that is not wisdom at all. It is not helping anybody. It's empty, fake advice. Now, there's another piece of advice that you hear so many times, and that is the way to be successful in trading is you have to be disciplined, right? Discipline. Well, that too is fake advice. For the simple reason, if you think about it, any person who is faced with stress and discomfort, and we all know that trading involves a lot of stress, okay? There's going to be times when you're going to be in a position and it's moving against you, or maybe it's not moving at all, and there's boredom, you're starting to get fidgety, stress builds. Any person, any human being, when faced with constant stress and discomfort, at some point it's going to be impossible for them to maintain discipline. You see this all the time. I have people come to me, what happens? They quit, all right? And I've spoken about this in the past, that's the body's normal physiological response. It's not like there's anything wrong with these people necessarily, but that is the body's natural physiological response. When it is faced with stress, all kinds of things happen physiologically that either A, tries to get you out of that situation, so the stress goes away. The stress is like a kind of a pain. It's like an emotional and also a physical pain that your body reacts to, and you got to get away from that. So people, they quit, they take, the so-called prudent losses. These kind of things. So when you hear people saying, well, yeah, trading success entails being disciplined. Well, no kidding. But the thing is, how do you get disciplined? I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm not saying that you have to be undisciplined. But you can't just be telling people, hey, you got to be disciplined. That's like saying, hey, to be a successful weightlifter, you have to lift 500 pounds. Well, you don't just, lie down on a bench press and lift 500 pounds. You have to train for that. The only way to become, to have the ability to be disciplined is to train yourself with constant exposure to stress and discomfort. So rather than, as most people do, run away from the situation, take the prudent losses, quit the systems or the approach or the analytics or the advice, run away from that because it's not working right away, or there is a high level of discomfort associated with that. The only way is to develop resilience. And the only way to develop resilience is to constantly put yourself up against tension, against stress, against discomfort. Now, we all know in life is full of ups and downs. Everybody. I don't care who you are. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care what your social status is. Everybody in life goes through ups and downs. That is a fact of life. And it is the same thing when you are trading and investing. There's going to be good times when things are just rolling along beautifully and you think like, hey, this is never going to end and this is so easy. And there's going to be times when it's really, really hard. And by the way, the times when it's really, really hard, that's most of the time. Let's face it. But you have to understand that this is part of the process. This is part of becoming good at what you do. You must build up resilience. And when you hear people telling you, well, you know, the secret to trading success is you have to have discipline. Well, no kidding. But how do you get to the point where you can have discipline? The only way for that to happen is that you have to put yourself up against stress and discomfort and tension all the time. And it's going to happen because we know that is a fact when it comes to trading. And the best way to look at that is your training towards mental toughness. I mean, you cannot run away from that. Running away from that or being on this kind of illusory quest to find some system that is going to alleviate you from that, from facing that forever, that is a fantasy, man. That is a total fantasy. You got to understand when you are faced with those situations, you have to embrace it. You have to look at it like a day at the gym or going out. You know, you want to be a marathon runner? Great. You got to go out and you got to train to be a marathon runner. I mean, all these analogies, these are all analogies applicable to anything like physical. I mean, your brain and your emotional state, I mean, you can affect that through training and through the proper attitude. I mean, running away from it and being on a quest for the system fairy that's going to, you know, take that aspect of this out of your life, that's just not going to happen. That is not going to happen. Any system, and look, I'm not advocating for my particular approach, which is the use of MMT to trade and invest, although I think that is superior because the understandings of the economic underpinnings, those are correct. And like I've said many times, I don't try to predict the market. I try to predict or forecast general basic economic conditions, because once you have an understanding of basic conditions, you can strategize, you can come up with ideas, you can figure out ways that you're going to make money. But that doesn't take the other part out of the equation. That doesn't take the stress factor out of the equation. That doesn't take the fact that you're going to be in positions sometimes that are going to be difficult and uncomfortable and challenging. But what are you going to do? Are you going to say, well, okay, that doesn't work, I'm going to try something else? No, it does work. It absolutely works. But you need to have the mental toughness. You need to have the resilience. And the only way you're going to get that is through constant exposure. And you know that's going to happen. But cutting and running is not the way you're going to build up what you need to build up, is that mental toughness. And then you could be disciplined. Then you're going to understand when somebody says, you know, just very flippantly, you know, to be successful in trading, you got to be disciplined. Well, yeah, no kidding. But how do you get there? Any normal person, and again, it's not because there's something wrong with you. That is your body's physiological response when you are faced with stress. And the only way to counter that is to put yourself up against that stress and that tension and that discomfort as often as possible. And we know that's going to happen with trading. We know it's going to happen with trading. It comes hand in hand with this activity. But rather than cutting and running, the fight or flight response, running away and seeking some fantasy system, just understand that it's good when you go through that. You have to go through that. That's the only way. All right, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.